One day, the legendary Chinese philosopher Zhu Yu witnessed a field mouse drinking from a pond. He realized that the field mouse consumed only the necessary amount of water, neither more nor less. It did not resist itself by consuming excessively, as doing so would only hinder its directionality. In contrast, humans often have the habit of consuming beyond their actual needs. We inevitably fall into the trap of material possession, purchasing more than what we need to live and thrive. Consumerism also comes at a high cost, requiring us to expend energy to persuade others to consume. Therefore, many are willing to sacrifice early and focus solely on accumulating what they call the extension of oneself, their ego's extension. They often think, "I have more, so I am more valuable," and thus, by adding more possessions, they hope to increase their self-worth. However, minimalism is becoming a movement against the capitalist society we live in. The essence of minimalism is to return to conscious consumption and decide on a life that is not overly necessary. Not just a modern lifestyle trend, minimalism is also a concept that has existed for many centuries. There is a sense of freedom in living simply and not owning too much, something that many saints and wise people have experienced throughout many eras. They realize that not being defined by material possessions and constantly pursuing external things has hindered us from experiencing life to its fullest and most meaningful. In a complex and negative world, minimalism has emerged as a method to achieve inner prosperity by reducing external clutter and focusing on more meaningful values. Let's explore together why less is more, and why the ability to let go is a way to truly become wealthy. Minimalism can be explained in various ways. At its core, minimalism is about focusing on the essentials in life, reducing complexity, and controlling excessive consumption. It promotes the idea of simplicity as a means to achieve balance and harmony. However, there are minimalist approaches that can veer off course, such as extreme austerity, which excessively focuses on minimizing everything to the maximum extent, can take us to the minimum. For example, when Prince Siddhartha Gautama lived a life of austerity, he only consumed 1 grain of rice per day and hardly had any flesh left on his bones. In the eyes of many, this could be seen as an embodiment of minimalism. It was not just about minimizing consumption, but also a way to demonstrate focus and patience in life. Gautama's simple life also came with renunciation of material possessions, leading to a profound insight into the true meaning of life and inner value without relying on material objects. However, in the case of extreme ascetics, less is not just a minimization but indeed a path to self-destruction. Siddhartha Gautama realized that punishing the body could not lead to enlightenment. Therefore, he abandoned the life of austerity before becoming the Buddha. There is a minimalist trend in fashion and lifestyle, but it is often combined with wealth, focusing on eliminating unnecessary and often cheap items while still maintaining expensive choices. For example, a minimalist living room in a $2 million apartment. In this scenario, minimalism is still used as a display of wealth, with the absence of inexpensive, outdated items highlighting the expensive possessions we own. Therefore, this can be considered a sophisticated form of consumerism, still revolving around status and wealth, and thus, requiring a lot of money to attain and sustain this lifestyle. This mindset must be countered by a series of intentions behind the minimalist lifestyle, a state of basic happiness, or contentment, achieved with minimal resources and freed from the burdens of status and extreme wealth. But this idea faces challenges when the basic standard of consumerist society we live in is, the more, the better. This relates to all that we commonly value in terms of social standing. Social status is often determined by material possessions and wealth rather than an individual's virtue and moral integrity. Wealth is often demonstrated through possessions like the car one drives, the house they live in, their belongings, and even their attire. These factors frequently define our place in the social pecking order, so, in a society where materialism is highly regarded, where shopping malls are like temples and consumerism is akin to worship, Those who dare to reject these holy elements are often viewed as blasphemers. Emperor Yao held Zhu Yu's simple life in the highest regard, even willing to abdicate the throne for him. However, Zhu Yu, living a solitary and tranquil life by the riverside, declined the emperor's invitation. He said that he didn't need all under heaven, and explained to the emperor, when a tailor bird builds its nest in the deep forest, it only needs to use a single branch. Emperor Yao esteemed Zhu Yu's modest lifestyle greatly, even being willing to yield his throne to him. However, Zhu Yu, living a secluded and peaceful life by the riverside, turned down the emperor's offer. He stated that he didn't require all under heaven, and elucidated to the emperor, when a tailor bird constructs its nest in the deep forest, it only needs to use a single branch. Lao-Tzu wrote the following passage in the Tao Te Ching: "If you value possessions too highly, people will begin to steal. Do not display your treasures, or else others will become envious." Ending the quote. This illustrates that owning too much wealth requires adequate protection. That's why we see outwardly wealthy individuals often living in fear, hiding behind walls in tightly controlled communities. On the other hand, by not owning too much, we save a lot of time and energy. We don't need to worry about preserving expensive items, and they don't distract us. Moreover, we can still find joy in life because we don't need to possess everything we desire. Why do we need a 2,000 square meter garden when we can walk in the woods? Why do we need an 8-bedroom mansion when we can live in a small, inexpensive house and enjoy the world outside for free? This is certainly something that the American transcendentalist philosopher Henry David Thoreau also pondered when he decided to live in a wooden house in the woods near Walden Pond. Thoreau intentionally chose a simple life because he believed it could lead to spiritual growth. A minimalist lifestyle not only helps us save costs but also creates conditions for tranquility and contentment. When we don't have to work hard to maintain unnecessary things, we can spend more time enjoying the simple and meaningful things in life. Isn't that the essence of freedom? So what do we really need? Where does the golden mean between asceticism and consumerism, which minimalist advocates seek, lie? Throughout history, there have been philosophers who shaped their minimalist lifestyles in unique ways. For example, Diogenes the Cynic, who lived in a barrel with no possessions, was a clear living testament to minimalism. It is said that at one point, he had a cup to drink water, but he threw it away upon seeing a child drinking water with his hands and remarked, "A child has beaten me in plain living." Furthermore, Diogenes was shameless and indifferent to what others thought of him. His detachment from worldly possessions as well as the opinions of others made him invincible. No one could harm him. However, for those who do not wish to live in destitution but still seek to maintain a harmonious and accepted life, there is a simpler method developed by the philosopher Epicurus. Epicurus constructed a system of categorizing desires, identifying which desires are worth pursuing and which are not. Natural and basic needs such as food, shelter, and social relationships are what we should focus on. Moreover, these natural needs are often easily attainable and have natural limits, meaning they can be satisfied. Epicurus termed desires that we should avoid as empty and futile desires, such as power, wealth, and fame. He believed these desires to be unnecessary, unnatural, and insatiable because they have no natural limits. Additionally, Epicurus also urged us to appreciate what we already have and to stop fixating on what we lack. He emphasized that we should not spoil what we possess by desiring what we do not have, and that what we have was once among the things we desired. In stark contrast to the lives of those who pursue unchecked extravagance, facing pain and sacrifice to bolster their self-esteem, adherents of the philosophy of minimalism seek self-acceptance in a world where wealth and social status are defined by the amount of property we possess. For them, a fulfilling and interesting life does not depend on owning much, but rather on the refinement of simplicity. In accordance with the philosophy of minimalism, they forsake conventional notions of wealth and social status, recognizing that true happiness lies not in external factors but within, and that societal approval is neither necessary nor valuable. They understand that true wealth is simplicity itself and that social status is temporary and inconsequential. Instead, they choose to live simply, knowing that the ability to let go of all these material things is where true wealth resides, the joy of simple and pure living. For them, simplicity is the highest form of refinement. As Thoreau said, "I believe that there is a subtle magnetism in nature, which, if we unconsciously yield to it, will direct us aright." Thanks for watching.